All right, what's happening? Facebook Live, Northeast Kayak Fishing TV. Tonight we got a little different subject. We got tournament fishing from a sit-in kayak. We got Eric Goldstein in here. He's going to talk about his experience with a sit-in kayak and why he decides to fish from a sit-in kayak. Uh, he's from New York. He fishes the Hudson Valley KBF. They got a good series over there. We had Rich Biggie on earlier this year. Rich actually just tuned in. He's in the comments already. So without further ado, let's bring in our guest. How you doing, Eric?
What's going on, Justin? I'm doing good. I'm doing good. Glad to be on the show.
Awesome. We're happy to have you. So first, let's just give everybody some background. You know, where you're from, where you live now, if it's the same place.
So I'm actually New York City born and bred. I was born in Brooklyn, raised in Manhattan. But when I was 10, my dad probably gave me the greatest gift he could ever have given me. And we didn't have a lot of money, but he got enough together to buy a house up in the Catskills. So from the age of 10 on, I spent my summers up in the Catskills, and the people next to us owned hunting and fishing lodges. They became my second family. My parents worked. I spent my time with my grandmother, and I met the kids, and we were like family, and we went fishing. And at 10 years old, I got my first fishing pole put in my hand. We didn't have rods back then. We had spin casters on poles with bobbers and worms and sinkers, and caught panfish, bluegill, catfish, pickerel. And as I got older, I started doing trout fishing. All throughout the Catskills and in a lot of the rivers there. Moved out of New York 28 years ago, New York City, brought the kids up to Rockland County. So now when I go back to the city, if I'm there for like 4 hours, I'm out of my mind. I can't take it anymore. It's brutal. And then the weirdest thing happened. So a little over 2 years ago, I have a buddy who may be on now. I'm not sure, Johnny Kleber. This is a guy I've had a lot of whiskey with. And he basically looked at me for no reason at all and said, "Did you ever fish?" And I looked at him like, well, I don't know why you'd ask me, but yeah, I used to fish all the time. I haven't fished in 20 years. And he used to be a tournament angler. And it's kind of like turning the key in a Ferrari. I said, all right, the two of us, we get an idea in our heads and we're just stupid. We just go nuts. And we did. And I spent that first season just bank fishing. And I was astounded by the technology now. I was bowled over. Couldn't believe it. It used to be, here's your rod, go fish. Now, if you want to throw a 3/4 ounce, spit weight, you have 3 different rods that you might throw it on. So I started fishing, and this guy every so often would go floating by me on a kayak. And I was having fun, but he'd come by and we'd start talking, and he'd say, "Catch anything?" And I'd say, "Yeah, I caught one about 45 minutes ago." And he says, "Yeah, I just caught 72 over there under the bridge." And that was Rich Biggie. So, I'm looking at this and I'm going, all right, I need to do something about this. So one day he kind of talked about this story. I met him on a dock at Rockland Lake, and he was about to put his yak in the water, and I'm on the dock, and we started talking. And we talked for about 30 minutes, and we suddenly realized that we forgot we're supposed to be fishing. And he did actually catch like a 5.5 pounder right there in front of me. And he set his yak up, and he's going out, and we're talking, and I just looked at this thing, and I said, you know what, I need to get one of these. And that was the start of it. I just kept on seeing these guys just on the water, and for me, it was these guys, it's a freedom. It really is freedom.
So what made you decide to go with the sit-in versus the sit on top?
Probably because I didn't know what the hell I was doing. Um, I go online and I start researching, and that article, my second article, will be out in Kayak Fishing Quarterly soon. I actually have your quote in there. Thanks for that, by the way.
No
Um,
problem, anytime.
and you get so many differing opinions. It's really hard to figure out. So that's what a lot of the article is about. It's really talking about just trying to get into it. So I went to a couple of shops, looked at a bunch of stuff. I really didn't want to commit to a whole bunch of money because I had no idea how I was going to feel about this. And I came across a Trophy 126. And I looked reviews up, and everybody who has one raves about them. They love them. 10.5 foot. And the thing I thought that was the coolest is right in front, right on the deck, the little cockpit area, is a little indent with a hook box in it, just a little Plano, like tiny. And I was like, all right, that looks like a fishing yak. So I figured, what the hell? Well, I'll go with that. So because the reviews were good, I figured it'd be okay. I didn't want to spend all kinds of money. And I got it out. And so the first thing I did was, because everybody in the world uses a crate, I didn't really know much about stability and handling and the rest of that, but I did know that people say it's a solid yak. So 42 pounds, pick it up, put it down, top of the truck, easy going. So it has two flush mounts, and I didn't really know what to do. So I got a big crate like everybody has, and it was in the bungees behind me. And I put my backpack full of gear in the bungees in front of me. So I go out for the first time, and it was absolutely, completely, and utterly miserable.
I can imagine.
So I couldn't reach the bag in front of me unless I leaped out of the chair. And then I had to pull it out. So it was really pretty much impossible to get. I could not reach down into the crate behind me. I could not get there. So I was on the water with my two rods set up for whatever they were set up for, and nothing else was going to change. Like if I lost a lure, that was it. I'm done. It's going to sit, and I'm going to hope the other one doesn't get lost. So it really forced me to figure out how I can make this thing work for myself. I will tell you this, that anybody just going from the bank into a sit-in, they have to understand that there's an adjustment period, because you're putting your body into a position it doesn't necessarily want to be in. I was a competitive cyclist for many, many years. I raced bikes. I used to get the question all the time, how do you sit on this thing? The seat's, tiny. You're in this position like this for hours and hours. And the answer is really that your body gets used to it, but you got to put in the time. And it was the same thing with the yak. So the first thing I realized is that two rods wasn't going to be enough. So I got two Scotties and put them on the sides, in an area where I can reach easily. So I was able to now go out with four rods. I got myself, it's in the picture, you can see it, a small basket. So the small basket behind me fits everything I need. I put two KVD Plano bags behind there, a nutrition bag. So I got cold water, sandwiches, whatever I need in there. Whatever else I might take.
How's that crate attached to the kayak?
Through bungees.
Two bungee cords. Now they just wrap around the whole boat?
I just put them through, like a crisscross.
Okay.
And I never take it off. I can transport the yak with the little basket on there. It never has to come off.
Awesome.
And I just turn around, it's right there for me. So then again, with that same bungee, I'm able to just put, if I want to take a jacket off, I put it right behind me. Everything's within arm's reach. So the real issue was then all the extra tackle that I need, what do I do with it? Because I cannot reach the bungees in front. No way for me to get there. So we were up, I think I went into Dick's, and they had an ugly stick bag on sale. And it seemed small enough, so I grabbed it. And I found out I can put it underneath the deck, between my legs, doesn't get in the way of anything, easy to pull out, easy to put back in. And that holds 4 Plano boxes. The little Plano on top holds all of my hooks, shaky heads, any kind of hooks I need, weights, all my tungstens are right in that little box. So when I need something, pop up the little bungee, open it, do whatever I need to do. So the next thing was I got out in the water again, and it wasn't quite as miserable, but it was still kind of miserable. I had almost everything I needed. I didn't have a net because, again, there's not a lot of room for anything. So where do you put a net? And then the next issue was going to be, where do I put a hog trough? So again, it forces you to really figure things out. And so I did. I got a collapsible net, which all I have to do is pull it out from a bungee on the side, flip it up, it's ready to go. And the hog trough I have leadered, and it can sit during transport underneath the hull, out of the way. And then when I need it, all I do is pull it out. I leave it in the bungees when I'm on the water, slides right out. I Velcro it right across the deck. So I know you were mentioning on the last show, you can't figure out how we even measure the fish like that. I actually have an easier time of it because it's literally half a foot in front of me.
Right.
So
I still don't. I'd be so worried about that fish going back in the water. I mean, you're pretty much hovering right over the water with that fish.
So I figured that problem out also, and I'm not going to say it's never happened, because of course the 21 incher fell off the boat at some point. I'm sure it was 21 inches.
Yes, it's
Uh,
always 21 inches.
oh, it's 21 inches. So what I do is I take the net and it sits in between my legs. I drop it there to let the fish rest while I get the catchboard or hawk trough set up. So if I have a problem, it's easy for me to flip that fish right back into the net. What was interesting though is I was up fishing with a couple of friends, and somehow I let the net go. I can't even figure out how, and it just went down. I was not able to get it back. And when I found out, and this is what's really interesting, is I have an easier time of it just lipping the fish out of the water and not using the net because I'm low to the water. So I can just reach in and bring it up, so I don't fumble with the net. So that's a plus. So by the third time, I was starting to get used to it, and then I started really enjoying it. And then I think after the third time, I was already into my first tournament, which I skunked out of, which was fine. It was a long 8 hours, but everything worked the way it was supposed to. So the things with a sit-in kayak that you have to think about before you get in one is that 8 hours sitting down can be brutal. So there are oftentimes I'll just pull in anywhere to the bank, but that's the good thing about it. I can pull in anywhere. So when you got guys on the bigger yaks, they can't get to the bank. I can go anywhere. In between rocks, I'll get out, stand up, do what I have to do to get myself comfortable. And the other thing you have to relearn kind of is casting. I can't flip like guys on stand-ups can.
Right.
So I have to learn to do everything kind of sidearm. So I flip sidearm. I've become pretty accurate at it, except because I'm sure Rich or if Lloyd's on there, they're going to tell you I'm definitely the tree king. I've left crankbaits all over the place.
Yeah, I had a smaller kayak when I first started. It wasn't a sit in, but it wasn't a very good sit on top. It was one of those Dick's Sporting Goods Future Beach or something like that. Um, and I had to learn how to. I like to flip and stuff, but I couldn't stand in this kayak. So I know what you mean by the sidearm stuff. Everything, you have to change your whole body mechanics in order to cast.
Absolutely.
Uh,
Absolutely. And the
Rich
slap
has a
hooping.
question. So before his question gets buried in the comments
Yes.
here, I want to make sure I can get it out. Um, he says, "How do you feel in a tournament scene competing against some of these guys that are running 10 rods and the works?"
So the first thing is I'm a really competitive guy. And when I get into something, I get into it with the intent of learning everything I can and putting everything into it. If I'm on a smaller body of water, I'd say anything 300 acres and smaller than that, uh, it doesn't matter to me. Because I can cover the same water. When I get into something like we were talking about Big Bass Championship, that's 1,100, almost 1,200 acres. That puts me at a heavy disadvantage. The thing that I found is, so there's electronics, which is something to have to take into consideration. I can't put them on that small yak because I can't fit batteries. I can't do any of that. But I've learned to read structure a lot better. Quite honestly, Rich has helped me a lot with that. I go out with him a lot and I learn a lot from him. And I know what my confidence baits are. And so that's what I go ahead with. I don't worry about what that other guy is doing because I'm just looking to improve. It's me versus the fish. It's not me versus them. And then what's great about being out with these guys is I get to talk to them and find out what they were doing, what they were throwing. And again, there are advantages to the bigger yaks, no question. But if anytime you look at any of these trails, any of these clubs, it seems like the same guys are always at the top. Doesn't matter how many other people have the same equipment. So it pushes me. I'm not going to say there haven't been days that I've been out there and I'm just putting my hands up because I'm not getting anywhere. I've caught a couple fish and somebody's just out fishing me because they got down somewhere much further than I can get to fast enough. But again, through this past season, I was watching guys who were just being patient, not using anything crazy. They're throwing Ned rigs and just rowing that Ned rig for an hour and pulling out giants. Um, so for me, it pushes me. It's a learning experience. Uh, Listen, man, none of us are out there to win huge monies yet. Some of you guys are. Maybe I will soon. But I just enjoy being out there and watching these guys. Always talk to them afterwards and learn from them. I'm a generalist with my rods because I can't carry 10 rods. So I have a medium light, two mediums. One is a dedicated crank, and I have a medium heavy. Um, I'm adding a fifth this year. I'll figure it out, but I want a heavy on there because I want to be able to punch. Because that's where, even if I get one of those hogs and they're down there, I'm on a medium heavy. There's only so much that line's going to take.
Exactly. Second part to that question, if you could do it all over again, would you still go with the sit-in, or would you go with a sit-on-top, so that some of the newer anglers know if they should go with the sit-in and maybe upgrade, or would you just go straight for the sit-on-top?
So I think having gone with the sit-in, it taught me a lot. And it actually made me a lot more ingenious with what I have to do. I can't say I would have done it differently simply because I've seen it now and I know what's out there. I am looking to upgrade, and I might even do it this season, but it's really just to get something I can stand up on. I don't really care about a motor. Maybe that'll come, but it's not something that I'm really jumping to get on with. The electronics, I have to be honest with you. I get it. And believe me, when I'm out there with my buddies who have electronics, I'm like, are you marking? Are you marking? You know, and there was, but I've been out there with guys who are sitting there telling me, yeah, I've got fish right underneath me and they're not catching anything. And I'm just using a crank to find the grass and I'm hitting. So, clearly electronics are a big part of the game. I'm not going to say it's not, but not having them that first season at least taught me how to read structure better, how to read a bottom. I can work a bank really well without having to look at Panoptics or Hero, whatever it is that is the new shiny. So I probably am happier that I went with the smaller kayak. When I go to a large one, I don't even know what I'll do with the space. I got Lloyd Castillo's got the Caribbean Princess, and the guy, I think he had a mic.
It's funny you say that because they're in the comments talking about how they could put yours on his yacht.
Yeah, there's no question about it. There's no question about it. It's sometimes we're next to each other talking, and if you got a picture of it, it's hysterical because he's standing up. He's got like 42 rods, and he's got half a steer in the back that he can cook later on in the day. Once in a while, a small ship comes by to ask me if he needs supplies. And I'm on this little thing, and I'm peeing into a cup. So. But what's great about it is Lloyd loves that. That's his thing. He loves tinkering. He loves doing all that stuff, and he's good at it. Really the only thing I want to be able to do, I just want to be able to stand up.
So you're definitely thinking of upgrading, or you definitely are upgrading?
I'm pretty sure I'm going to upgrade. Yeah. I got to tell you, this is the thing about the small yak. So, you talk about Lloyd, we'll meet to go fishing. And sometimes I'll get there a half hour later for the meetup because I know he's not going to be ready to go in the water yet. It just takes them that long.
I know exactly what you're talking about. It takes me a good half hour, 45 minutes to get all my shit rigged up and on the water.
Right. Takes me 8 minutes and I'm on the water fishing. That's it. It literally takes me 8 minutes. So the convenience is really amazing. And then the other thing that's really cool about the small yaks is a lot of times when I go out alone by myself, there's something about being that close to the water, and there's not a lot around you in the boat. It's this small craft, and it really, to me, it's very calming. Just to be out there and it's quiet and there's not a lot, and I do enjoy paddling. The joke between myself and Lloyd, actually, that other people have said to us, we both have been competitive cyclists for many years. and neither one of us. He's got a motor, and I use a paddle. The two of us, our legs should probably pedal for like 14 hours and not
Right.
feel it.
Right.
Yet we're both paddling or using motors. But I like the paddling because I do work out a lot. Fitness is a huge part of my life, and I go out and I paddle for 6 hours. It's a phenomenal workout. I think Rich said on the last show that for the most part, I can keep up with most guys with the motor unless they're flat out.
Right.
So, except for the one day that he towed me back across Rockland Lake.
Dominic
literally threw a rope and towed me.
Dominic Tortorello has a question. He says, Eric, last year I used the sit-in kayak. My question is, how do you feel when waves get big? He fished Lake Champlain last year and got quite nervous.
So, he's right. Yeah, the only time I ever ran off a lake, we had talked about before we went live, was up in Harriman, Tiarati, and it's a lake that gets a lot of wind. And it got so bad that I started heading towards the launch, and my buddy Kleber was already off, and he's got a big, kayak. He's got a big Jackson big rig, and it was scary. It's the only time I've ever been worried. I was getting tossed around, but I've never worried about flipping in this thing. It's got like a chined hull, I think they call it, so it's really pretty stable. But I do not, full disclosure here, I stay away from really big lakes that get a lot of pleasure boaters.
All right,
I don't want to go near them at this point. Yeah.
Let's talk. We talked before the show a little bit about the Big Bass Championship we had here in Rhode Island that you came for, and you had mentioned about how you had a little tough time with the wind today. Just describe to the guys what you were dealing with then.
So yeah, that's a tough lake. I got to tell you, it was probably one of the toughest days of fishing I ever had. John DeCenzo's a great guy, and I loved every minute of it. To be able to qualify for any kind of championship my first season out, and in that small yak, was fantastic for me. So we got up there, and you were there. So what's really funny is a couple of the guys came up and they were talking to me about my yak because it was the smallest yak there, and they were impressed with everything I had on there and how I was able to get it set up. But there was one guy, I don't even know his name. I was saying hello to people. I said hello to him, and he literally looked at me, then looked at the yak, and his face was like, "What are you doing here?" So I'm like, "Yeah, whatever. That's fine, man. It's cool. It's all right with me." So we get out on the water, and it was windy to start with. Again, it's close to 1,200 acres, and we were all sent out kind of in the qualifying, ladder. So highest went out first. So guys were already heading out to the far end. Matt goes out and he says, "All right, man, hopefully I'll see you at that end." My turn comes, and I get out in the water, and the wind is hitting me so hard that paddling was tough. I would paddle for 3 minutes and get pushed back further than I went out. So I decided to just stay close to the bank. I just go to the left, and I'm just going to fish the bank. And, there's all those little, it's almost like the Everglades.
Yeah.
The Everglades. Yep. You go through the little weed lines and all. And I would say about 5 hours into the day, it was so bad. I had to go back to the launch, get out of the yak for like 20 minutes just to stop my head from spinning. It was out of control. When I got back in the water, and then that place is all 9 foot and submerged growth, everything just underneath the surface. It's insane. So I got Matt's texting me saying, "Come on down to the far end. We're hitting over here. Just get over here." And I text back literally saying, "There is no way I can make it across this lake. I'm exhausted. My arms are exhausted." So it was the toughest day of fishing I ever had. I did catch 3 fish. All pickerel. So I actually thought at one point of throwing it onto the board and measuring it and sending it in and see what John would say.
Right.
So it's tough when you get into situations like that. I had an Anchor Wizard on at one point, but I was always too nervous about using it in a high wind, which is the only time I need to use it.
Right.
So I don't do that. So yeah, I get it. That stuff's tough, but an amazing experience. Look, it was only 1 fish to win that thing, right?
Right. One big fish. That's all it took. It wasn't a very big fish that won it. I mean, your buddy won it with a 18 or 18.75, something like that.
Yeah.
I mean, I came in third with a, I don't know, 16 incher or something like that, 16 and a quarter maybe. It
I
was
just want to say, Matt was not going to go. And if he's watching, he was not going to go. And I convinced him to go. I said, dude, we're going to go up together. We're going to have a blast. So we ended up staying. I don't know where you stayed, but we stayed at the Motel 6.
yeah. I live there, so
You
I,
know that? You know that motel?
I'm not sure where that is, but um,
It's a trip.
oh yeah.
Yeah, it was. I mean, the room was clean enough, but it certainly was not.
Do you know what
Wouldn't
town
have
it
been
was
my
in?
first. I honestly don't. I don't. I know there was a really good restaurant there called the Ironworks, maybe.
Ironworks. I've heard of that, but I don't think
Yeah,
I've ever been there.
right off of the highway. So we get up at 6 o'clock in the. I mean, 4 o'clock in the morning, and we go down. Everything's loaded up. We go in just to check out. So the desk guy is asleep on the couch in the lobby, and two couples are coming in who clearly looked like they had been out. I mean, the girls they weren't really wearing anything but nothing,
Right,
bras and
washcloths.
panties. It was out of control. They were, and they were all in there screaming and yelling and having a party, and we're in our fishing gear and hats and getting ready to go to this fishing tournament. It was a trip, but I
Welcome
had a
to Rhode
blast.
Island. Oh man, yeah. It's a nice area. So about like adding accessories, you don't have any gear track or anything like that on that kayak?
No, what I put on as far as like essentials, so I have cleats on either side so I can tie up, and I always have a bungee hooked bungee so that I can tie up to any dock wherever I need to. I have my clam for my paddle. I don't really think I have much of anything else. I have uh, my trough, has a leader on it. My net will probably have a leader on it this season. I mean, yeah, because lost that one in the water. And no, I don't. There's really no place to put that stuff. So again, you have to figure out what's going to work on a small yak like that. I would tell anybody that's looking to just get into it and they want to not spend a lot of money, so they're going to go for a sit-in, that they got to have patience. They got to understand the first time they get in the water with this thing, it's going to be difficult, especially if it's not an open one. And that's the thing about mine. Mine isn't enclosed. My buddy Andrew has a sit-in, but his is an open deck. So he can puts his feet out and relaxes like that. You can't do that in mine. So you got to give it time. Like I said, those first few times really was uncomfortable and brutal. But once you get used to it, there's a freedom in that small kayak that's hard to explain. It's again close to the water, so I'm really stable. Clearly, I'm not standing up in the thing, but I've never worried except for that one time on Tiarati about getting rolled. I can take a decent amount of waves in that thing because the center of gravity is so low. You just get inventive. You know, even going to the bathroom when I got to take a pee, I've got that figured out.
Uh,
So,
David Emerson tuned in. He must have tuned in a little late, but he's asking what kayak you're using currently.
so it's a Future Beach Trophy 126,
All right,
which is
David.
made by, I think it was Precision is what the company's called.
Yeah,
I
you
think they've
get them at
upgraded the
Dick's.
model.
I think you get them at Dick's Sporting Goods.
You can. I don't. I think they've upgraded the models. I don't know if you can get the same one anymore. But again, the reviews on it were phenomenal, and I would recommend it to anybody that wants to sit in.
Yeah, I have the Future Beach. It's like they call it a sit on top, but it's really not. It's kind of an open deck that you're sitting in. Um, and I still have it. I mean, it's a good kayak. It's a good one to start from. That's how I started. I fished out of it for a couple years. It's durable, and I mean, I beat on it because it's cheap. I dragged that thing through the woods, uh, and it's lasted. My kids use it now whenever they decide to get off the couch.
Yeah, it's something that when you have that small yak and you upgrade, I don't see too many people who get rid of them. One of the best things about it is, I live so close to Rockland Lake here. It's 5 minutes from my front door. If I have a few hours in the morning, even before work, I can throw it up. It's I'm set up in 5 minutes, so I can get on the water. I can spend 3 hours fishing, get it on the truck back home, and everything put away. without any worries, without taking up a lot of time. And that's a huge thing. And then the other thing is, I see some of these guys, I'm going to be pushing 60 in May. And, again, I'm a fitness guy, I work out a lot. But, the thought of some of these 110-pound yaks, it's daunting. I don't want a trailer. Again, because I don't, when I have my yak on top of my truck, I can go anywhere. I can get into anywhere. I don't have to worry. There's, a lake up in Harriman and Sebago where half the guys won't go simply because the launch is horrendous. And I can just slide it in by the rocks and I go fishing.
Right.
So the convenience is absolutely amazing.
Even on the water, though, I mean, you can get to areas that a lot of bigger kayaks can't get to. I don't know if you went to the national championship last year.
Not yet.
When they fished in Louisiana, the cypress trees and stuff. I mean, I'm sure you've seen pictures. The cypress trees can be really difficult to get through, and I would imagine that small sit-in kayak, I mean, you could get deep into those cypress trees, if as long as you could deal with the poisonous critters that are hanging from everywhere.
Yeah. I get from New York, so I can deal with a lot. But even down here, there are places where there's.
Hold on. Lloyd says you don't look a day over 59.
I think Lloyd's got the same doctor I have. If you ever want to go out and have a pisser, go out with Lloyd Castillo.
Oh, I could tell from coming through the comments, man. Oh man, he's killing me over here.
Yeah, I'll read them after. I'm sure we're gonna have a conversation.
Yeah, there's a lot of good ones. You have to read them. There's a lot of good ones.
So I'll tell you a funny story about Lloyd. So Lloyd and I, again, we raced for many years, doing triathlons, bike racing, things like that. And again, I'm a serious competitor. I'm gracious and all the rest of that. But when I'm in the hunt, man, I'm in the hunt, and I do everything I can, and I sweat through it, and I want to win, and all that. And Lloyd. So, we were racing around on $6,000, $10,000 bikes. I was semi-sponsored, so I'd get a lot of this stuff almost free. So it was great. We're out there doing our thing. And he has, his bike is probably, I'm going to say maybe 10 grand.
Holy shit.
And yeah, these are like serious racing bikes. They're not like anything you can really imagine. They're Porsches, but they're two-wheeled bicycles. So I'm out there and killing myself in every race. He would get in the races, and on this gorgeous, incredible speed machine, he would have a little kid's bell. And he would come up behind people and just start ringing this little kid's bell. And it would mess their heads up so much that they didn't know what to do. He would just glide by them. That's Lloyd Castillo. So that's why if you see his yak, you'll understand.
Greg Mulgrew says, tell Eric to get out of his kayak now. He uses it for an office chair.
You're not supposed to tell anybody that. Yeah, it's funny. The first video I did, I used to do a lot of videos for Basscasters Club, was me sitting in the kayak in the grass behind my house, practicing casting.
Yeah, I would imagine you have to. I didn't really compete from the one that I had to sit all the time in. But I would imagine if you were competing, you would have to practice a lot to get your casting accurate, at least.
You do. There's no question. I think the biggest hurdle I had to get over, and Rich makes fun of this all the time when it does happen to me here or there, it kind of calls me slap water, is when you just keep that rod tip too low and you slap water.
Yep.
And quick enough, you're just nesting all over the place. It's cotton candy.
Yeah. I would imagine you get snagged up behind you too. Sometimes reaching back with the cast and getting snagged up.
Less than you think. I actually have one of them on GoPro, which I put out a little ways back. It's a 3-second snip, and you literally see the rod go back. So the camera's on my head. So snap it. All you hear me do is go, oh, and then turn the camera off, and you see my hit on the other rod. But it doesn't really happen a lot because most of my casting is going to be sidearm. And again, I've learned to be able to get tremendous distance out of that. So here's where the let's talk about the advantages and disadvantages, I guess. So one of the things that bothers me a lot, because I see this debate on the interwebs all the time, and all the warriors come out and have to get their opinions out. Is this thing about motors and it being an unfair advantage, or we shouldn't have motors? And so my thing is, it is an advantage, but it's not an unfair advantage. These are the rules of the game.
Right.
So if your choice is to not have a motor, then I don't want to hear you. Like, I don't use a motor, so I'm not going to bitch about the guy who's got a motor.
Exactly.
It's right, because you can you're in the same field. Save your money up. If you don't have it, buy yourself a motor. I don't know what to tell you. The other, so where the disadvantages come is on the smaller yaks, that it is harder to get places. On those big lakes, it's tough. The other thing is, you're limited in some of the baits you can use. I can't really use jerk bait on that thing because I have no height. I'm either working the rod up like this, which doesn't really help you with the jerk bait.
Right,
you're just standing up.
You're bringing it to the surface instead of letting it suspend. Right. Yeah, it's
exactly. So it does limit that. So when you have a smaller yak like that, I like to say, I'm sure Greg Mulgrew will have a comment for this, that I have to be smarter.
Oh, I'm sure it's coming now. They are in here cracking up about you casting into trees. Lloyd's saying he goes back to the ponds the day after you leave to get all the lures.
Who said that?
Lloyd. Yeah. Oh man.
Yeah. So my favorite crank is a KVD 1.5. At any given time, I'll have 5 on me. In case I light up the trees. So yeah, I am kind of the tree king.
He called it Joe Lynx calls it the crankbait Christmas tree.
That is me. So there's the other disadvantage in a small yak. When it's in that tree, you're not standing up to get it out.
You can't stand up at all? Have you tried?
No, you can't. No, I can stand up holding on to get out, but I can probably practice. But you're not going to cast anything. I mean, you can't, because it's very stable, but it rolls. So I've never worried about it going over. Never. I've put my foot in the wrong way and it started to roll, and I'm able to fix it immediately. So because of this chined hull, it doesn't really flip, but it will roll on you.
Lloyd says he still can't figure out how you throw a crankbait from that little of a yak.
So my most of my rods, or all my rods, are pretty much fast actions. I need that whip at the top so that I can do that. I use quick plug illusion. They have something called a Yak Life series, and it's actually a shorter handle. So it's the same height, same action, everything's the same, but I don't have to worry about getting, the butt of the handle stuck anywhere. So it's real easy to one-hand it. A lot more maneuverable in a small yak like that. So that helps. And quite literally, you just practice a lot. You just practice. Again, drop shotting, not the easiest thing to do from little sitting, because you're literally trying to pop this thing up and down. So you figure out other ways. I want to know how Lloyd casts from that giant barge, I just feel it's always, it's like you look at the East River and you see the barges are moving. It takes them about 3 hours to stop.
What does he have for a kayak?
He'd have to type it in. I don't know what the name of it is. I literally call it the Caribbean Princess. He has a Tacoma, which is like one of the biggest trucks, on earth. And he slides this thing into the back. He's got this whole rack. The guy is amazingly ingenious. So he's got the whole thing built out, and the thing still sits outside the truck for like 9 feet.
He must have like a Hobie Pro Angler 14, maybe.
It's unreal. The thing is unreal. The deck space is just ridiculous.
He's got a Blue Sky. So he's got like a pontoon boat.
Yeah, it's insane. It is absolutely insane. So one of my favorite things is to run up behind him and cast out in front of him and catch.
Wow. Anthony Davila says, do you get a lot of water in the sit-in?
Um, Not a lot. I have the so the worst water I ever got. We were actually it was a tournament. I think it was Lake Sebago, and I had water all over the inside, and I couldn't figure out what was going on. I get the boat out, um, turned it over, opened my scuppers, got out whatever water. I put it up on the truck, and as I'm driving home, water is flying out the back. It's like coming down the window. It's like a faucet. So I get home, and there was a puncture hole right on the corner in the back. So there was a whole other bunch of guys up there. A John boat tournament was going on, and for the most part things were great. But I think there might have been some friction because I maintain to this day somebody popped a nail through that thing. So I don't know if that's true or not. But when I spoke to Future Beach, they gave me some crap about, well, that looks like a wear mark. I'm like, a wear mark? I'm like, things don't wear like this. They wear in a pattern. This is a hole.
Right.
But the guys at Dick's were phenomenal. The guy took it back and exchanged it for me. And I got the new one, and even allowed me to change color. So I got the one we call the Red Rocket now. Yeah, I don't really get a lot of water in there. A little bit, nothing that ever bothered me.
Johnny Keeber says he sits in the yak and practices in his backyard. Problem is about $800 worth of crankbaits in the tree line.
So he's one half of the problem of all this nonsense, because he's the one who asked me if I ever fished, and we were probably drunk as fish when he asked me that. So I blame him for part of it, and then I blame Rich for the other part.
He also wants to know if you have a glass of whiskey over there next to that water.
That's pretty funny. My wife actually asked me that, and I said, "No, you know what, honey? I'm just going to leave it upstairs. I'm gonna be very quiet, and very sober. I am working tomorrow, but yeah, no, there's a lot of whiskey put down over the years between the two of us. But the other thing I would tell people that are just getting into this, and especially if they're going with these small yaks, find a bunch of people that are into fishing and that are just decent people. So we have, I mean, this club, I can't thank Rich enough for inviting me. I was a board member for the first season, and I can't thank him enough for inviting me to be a board member. This year there's so much going on. I can't beat all the tournaments. I can't focus on it. But we still talk a lot, and I still like to know what's going on with the club and all. And of course, I'm still a member, and I'm going to compete. But I've met so many guys that are just so generous with their knowledge, their time. These guys always willing to help you out there. They're never withholding information unless you're on Round Lake and Greg Mulgrew is catching, and 5 of us end up shooting the shit all around his kayak. And I'm sure he remembers that. So it was just a bad day all around, but he was catching. So we just sat there talking while he's trying to fish. But really a bunch of great guys. It's so you find a good club, no matter what you're fishing. And if these are real anglers and guys that are really interested in, getting to grow the sport, they're going to help you out. And I've gotten, so much help this season from just watching everybody, listening to everybody. And that's the other thing, just be open to listening to what people tell you. It's I don't want to say it's a complex sport, but there's a lot, man. It's just, there's so much to this.
It is. It changes all the time. The fish are never the
all
same.
All the time. Right. I have a nephew that wants to get into it. He fishes now, so I'm going to try and get him out this season. And he was talking to me about it, and I started telling him about it all, and then I stopped myself because I realized, holy shit, I'm going to scare the crap out of this kid. He's bank fishing, with live bait.
Right.
So that's an important thing. You got to have good people around you. Again, there was. I always see these debates, and it's small yak versus big yak, and I'm like, I don't get any of this nonsense. You're all out in the water, we're all chasing the same fish, and you know what? We're all going to the same bar afterwards to have a beer and talk about the one that got away, and that's what that's for me the biggest part of this. I want to win, and my goal again for this year is really Big Bass Championship again, because monthlies are much easier on me, and that's the other thing about a small yak. Those 1 days for 8 hours, it's tough, man. When you're sitting in there and not getting up, it's tough. So the monthlies are really good for me. I can go out for 4 hours, catch a couple of big fish, get on the boards. But phenomenal experience. I don't care what you're fishing out of. Get on the water, get out there, and just have fun. Don't forget that the reason we do this is because this is what's supposed to be fun for us.
Lloyd says he's cut down to 22 rods now.
I so don't believe him.
And Anthony wants to know if you always have a cigar while kayak fishing.
He should be able to answer that question for you. I always go out with at least 2 sticks on me. I'm a big cigar guy. I love cigars. I'm out in Miami almost every year. I know guys out there that hand roll, and they always go out there to get my cigars special when I'm there. It combines 2 of my favorite things. The only one I don't have out there is the whiskey, but that's probably a bad idea. So yeah, I almost there are guys who roll up on me on the water and they're not sure who I am at first, and then I'll turn around and they see the stogie and like, oh hey Eric, how you doing?
Yeah.
So it's kind of my thing. Yes, I always have sticks with me.
That's awesome. I enjoy cigars here and there. I won't call myself a cigar guy, but it's good to have one while you're fishing.
Oh my God, it's amazing. And I'm also careful. I don't drop anything overboard. I always take the whatever's left with me. I keep them in a little side thing, plastic bag to throw them into. So with that, it's calming and it's relaxing, and so it's just incorporating 2 of the things I like to do most, and it's kind of become, I guess, kind of like a trademark for me. So if I stop now, everybody's going to look at me cross-eyed.
So you've done some writing. Talk about that and let guys know where they can read some of your stuff.
Yeah, I've been a writer actually for many years. For a while, I worked in the comic industry, had a bunch of things published, wrote for some other companies, short stories, essays, articles, all that. So it's always been a part of my life. I used to do a lot of blogging for Basscasters Club, which is a big group, like 17,000 members on Facebook. Company's been bought like twice, so at this point, I don't know what's going on with them. And then, I always put things out on the net just because I enjoy writing. And I'm writing now it's primarily crowdsourced, but I guess John Payne likes my stuff, so I should be in the next one as well. So my first story out there was called The Catch, which is really just an experience of catching a big one. And the next article is coming out, I guess, in March. And this one's really about, it's entitled, So You Want to Get Into Tournament Kayak Fishing. And it's just from my perspective of somebody who went right from the bank into a kayak and started tournament fishing. I don't get into brands. I don't hawk the wares. I am a regional staff, and I know all the controversies around that for a rod company. I don't use this as a vehicle for that. That's not what I'm looking to do. I just talk about what to look for, what you might want to stay away from. I really caution people about the research on the interwebs. It's one of the things that I think actually overwhelms people is they'll ask a simple question and there's 472 answers, and everybody starts disagreeing with each other. And I think that really brings a lot of harm to people trying to get into this newly, which is why I even reinforced in the article, find a bunch of people that are like-minded and just, people that want to grow the sport. So that's coming out in March. I got a couple other things that I'm working on. I actually might start doing a series just on the different lakes that we fish on and do a little more traveling, do some camping, and looking to start something that Lloyd and Kleber and Anthony know about. It's going to call Forget About It Fishing, which is basically fishing from a New York perspective. I have a degree in English, so I guess I have to maintain kind of a decent vocabulary for working on. But I grew up in Little Italy, so when I get really mad, I start talking like this and cursing stuff out. A lot of my friends. So you've seen the movie Goodfellas?
Yes.
So remember the restaurant that like Polynesian Chinese restaurant?
Yes.
That was actually owned by my friend's father. it was called the Silver Leaf, and that's exactly what it was like. That's I grew up running around the streets of Italy, of Little Italy, and so that's big in my background. So I want to do forget about it fishing because I believe you talk about this sometimes, the Northeast, and we have tremendous fishing here. We're the best kept secret, and I don't know, maybe we want to keep it that way, but I talk to guys all over the South and West, talk about all the big fish they caught, and I'm like, come on down here, let's see what you got. I'll go to Florida, I'll catch all day long. I went out there last year, and all I used was a shaky head and Senkos, and I was pulling fish out by the truckload. It was insane. But yeah, so I have that. I'm hoping to get that going soon. More articles out in Kayak Fishing Quarterly, and we'll see where it goes.
Awesome. I'm looking forward to reading those. What's your plans for 2020? What do you got planned for the season?
So one of my biggest goals is I really want to make it back into DeCenzo's Big Bass Championship. I love the challenge. It's like a 4-month period, which really works in my wheelhouse. I want to fish as many of the HVKBF tournaments as I can. I would like to get out on one of the bigger lakes. They talked about Mayopac and Copake, which I missed both of last year. So I would like to try and get onto a couple of those big lakes. I think my biggest goal is I've never pulled a 21er. So I'd like to pull a 21 inch out of the water. That's not a pickerel.
Yeah.
And get back on my finesse game, by the way. That's a huge goal for me. When I was bank fishing, it was mostly finesse. And, I did very well with it. I don't know what happened when I got into the kayak. I guess I'm going to blame Rich Biggie again because, he's out there. He was throwing chatterbaits and, all kinds of power fish lures. And I'm like, oh, man, that looks cool. So I started getting into power fishing, and it consumed me. And what happens is I'll throw out a shaky head, which is one of my favorite ways to fish. And I'm sitting there, doing this, and I'm losing my mind. And I have to get that patience back because time and time again, in the tournaments, I see the guys catching the biggest fish on finesse fishing, patience, taking their time, and it makes me effing nuts.
It does.
So
I'm the same way. I'm a power fisherman, and almost all the tournaments are won with somebody throwing a Senko wacky rigged or a Ned rig or shaky head, something finesse and drop shot. It's so discouraging.
It's Andrew Fager who might be watching. I don't know. He loves Senkos. He throws a Senko out, weightless, catches fish. I do the same thing right next to him, and I can't catch a cold. It's amazing. But again, it's patience. So that's one of my big goals. I want to get my finesse game back.
Rich Biggie says, ask Lloyd. Guys pulled a 22-inch monster.
He did. Lloyd did. It was like the first fish he caught. None of us could believe it. I think he still holds the club big bass record.
Lloyd said my first time fishing.
Yeah, his first time out. Unbelievable. One more thing for me to hate him for. He hasn't caught anything over 14 inches since then, though.
No, that one stung.
That's fired.
So something I ask everybody on here: your top 5 anglers of all time. Can be a pro, can be guys you fish with, can be anybody in the world.
So I just want to, I watch your show all the time, so I just want to prove it because I wrote my list.
He came prepared, guys. Pay attention.
No, not really. A lot of these names are probably going to sound familiar, but so I am going to say Ike as one of the top simply because the guy, you can't, deny the guy's a phenomenal fisherman. He's got a hell of a resume. I happen to love that, everybody hates that he screams and yells. I love it. People call him obnoxious, but, I'm from New York, so I can't really call anybody else obnoxious. I don't have a proper measuring stick for that. I also really admire the fact that he has done so much for the sport. He gives to kids. He has his charity events all year long. The guy's really true to himself, and he sticks with his friends. He's been with the same crew since they had their own club, decades ago, and that speaks volumes to me. So he's one of my favorites. I love At Defoe. Guy's a class act. Guy's a hell of a fisherman. I remember watching him in an MLF event a couple years ago. He got out of his boat and dragged it over a sandbar
Yep.
to get back into a creek.
Yep.
Remember that?
Yep.
That was amazing, and he won because of that. That
Right.
got him the win. Yeah,
He
amazing.
did it two periods in a row. He did that 2 periods
Yeah.
in a row.
Unbelievable. And he's just a class act. The guy's just a class act. Jacob Wheeler is a phenomenal fisherman, but if I hear him say ding one more time, I'm just saying it. But good on him. The guy's doing great. Another one of my favorites is Andy Montgomery. I love Andy Montgomery. Again, guy's just real. I think he's just very cool under pressure, just takes things as they come. He's funny. I love that he calls himself by his own name. He's like, Andy's got to get this going. That good guy. And somebody mentioned this one last night, Watson.
James Watson, yeah.
Oh my! I can watch this guy forever, and the Schumer fish will live on in legend forever. Funny guy. What I think's really funny when he's out in the water is, and he can fish. He tries to goof around with the judges, the refs on the boat, and they can't. They have to be like straight faced, and he just is going at them, and that cracks me up. And then the other one, which I think is interesting, that this one's never been named, but I watch her stuff, and I think she's a beast on the water, and I love her stuff. Christine Fisher, I love watching her. She's a hell of a kayak angler. She goes out there and she's an animal on the water. So she's somebody I also admire and like to watch, and that's pretty much my list. But it's hard to get condensed into 5.
Oh, it is. It's very hard. That's why I ask it. I thought about cutting it down to 3, but I didn't think that would have been fair to everybody. But yeah, that's funny that Christine has never been mentioned on the show, because she's one of my favorites also. She's definitely great to watch. I don't know if I could put her in my top 5, but she's definitely fun to watch. Definitely one of the top kayak fishermen in the world. I'd like to see some kayak fishermen up against some real deal pros, and we can really see, who's the best. Is it?
Is it the kayak or the
Right.
the guy that's on the 250 horsepower?
Right.
What I find interesting though, and what I enjoy, one of the reasons why I enjoy watching, whether it's FLW, Bass, or MLF, what I really, I don't know if enjoy is the right word, but I watch these guys, and these are pros, and they're out there, and there are days they're just straight up skunked, or having trouble and can't find the fish, and it's it's one of the few sports where you can watch, and we're out there doing the same thing, obviously not at that level, but you see these guys having the same tough days that we have, and it's I don't want to say it makes me feel good, but it kind of makes you understand the sport a little more, and that this is a tough sport. This is not easy.
Right.
I have a lot of family members, and we talk about it, and they talk about me tournament fishing, and it's what you do. You throw a thing into the water, and I can't begin to explain it to them, and I can't begin to explain how much goes into it, and what you have to do, and those tough days when the fish aren't biting. So watching those guys when they're having their tough days, it gives me hope, I guess I would say. But it makes you understand that everybody has those days, and it's a finicky sport. When the fish want you to, when they want to humble you, they're going to humble you.
Oh, definitely. One thing that I've come to realize, I think, and my look on the whole bass boat versus kayak thing is, a bass boat can travel the entire lake to catch his 5 fish. A kayak fisherman needs to consolidate to a small area that he can get to catch his 5 fish. That's why I'd really like to see this a head-to-head, a kayak pro versus a bass boat pro, and really see who's the best, who does the better homework, who does the better fishing on the lake, and who can find them all in the same area.
I would tell you this, you know, the one thing about kayak angling is it forces you to have to work harder to learn everything you need to know about even a single lake. So I almost want to say you kind of have to be better at your craft, because you can't just pick up and ride 20 minutes to get, 15 miles away.
Right. I like to compare it to bow hunting versus rifle hunting. A rifle hunter can sit half a mile away and shoot a deer. A bow hunter has to be sitting right on top of them, right around 20 yards. So
Yeah, absolutely.
you got to
Yeah,
do your homework.
Yeah, 100%. I have a Jennings and a 6 foot long that have they're hanging in the garage for the last 20 years. I haven't shot in a long time. It's another thing that I'd love to get back to, but
Yeah,
it's consumed my life.
I've recently decided that I've got to sell my hunting equipment because I just never get to use it anymore.
That's just it's again. I get the yak, run down to the lake, and I'm fishing. I can't deal. Those days are gone for me. I'm not going out and getting
Right,
all prepped up. I can't do that anymore. I just can't.
right.
So I watch Outdoor Channel. That's where I get my thrills from.
All right, Eric, I'm going to let you thank anybody you want to thank. I want to thank you for coming on the show and talking about the sit-in kayak, and for actually even bringing up the subject to have on the episode. I think it was a good topic. I think guys learned some stuff from it, and you may have helped somebody make a decision that might be just starting out. So thank anybody you got to thank, and we'll let you get on with the rest of your night.
So, really, as far as thanks, I really want to thank everybody at Hudson Valley Kayak Bass Fishing for last year's season. Everybody's been great. We had a lot of fun. I learned a lot from these guys, and I hope to learn a lot more. I hope to learn how to take some of their money away. That would be a good lesson. I want to actually also some special thanks to Anthony Davila, Lloyd Castillo, Johnny Kleber, because that they're a support system. We goof around a lot. They're always great to be with on the water. I want to thank Rob Braun and Rich Biggie, who were the two guys who really brainstormed and put this thing together. Because it's a phenomenal thing and it's only going to get bigger and bigger. And just really a big thank you to Rich Biggie, simply because first of all, the guy's a natural to the point where I want to throw him in the water. But the guy, anytime I've gone out with him, and it's not just me, he'll do this for anybody. He's always there to help, to teach. He'll never be a crutch for you, but he helps you out a lot. The guy's he's a wealth of knowledge, and he's a giving kind of guy. So I thank Rich B, because if it wasn't for him taking the time, so many times, more than a year ago when I was on the bank, just to say hello. The guy, he says hello to people, and that's a big thing. People don't do that. They walk around minding their own business. Rich says hello to people. He talks to people. And then we had that conversation on the dock, which was the one that really got my foot in the water, literally. And again, I had my little yak, and you never heard anything out of his mouth that was anything less than, man, that thing's awesome. Man, that thing's so cool. Look what you did with it. Always encouragement. So big shout out to Rich Biggie. And that's it. Looking forward to getting rid of this winter and getting back on the water.
Absolutely, man. I can't wait. Again, thank you for coming on and talking about your setup and giving these guys a hell of a show tonight. I think it was one of the best shows we've had. We had a lot of laughs, a lot of knowledge. So thanks for coming on, and I can't wait to talk to you again. All right, buddy.
Great. And anybody out there wants to look me up, needs to know about small kayak living, I'll stuff you into mine, and you can experience pain on another level.
All right. Have a good night, Eric.
Take care. Good night, guys.
All right, guys. Mr. Eric Goldstein from Hudson Valley Kayak Bass Fishing. That was a great episode. Thursday night, Top Dogs, we got Chris Smiggs Angler of the Year from New Hampshire Kayak Fishing. He's also the director, New Hampshire Kayak Fishing. So we got some questions for him on Thursday. And Friday is still open at the moment. I have some leads out there. Somebody that was supposed to be on hasn't got back to me, so I don't know what's going to happen with Friday. Either way, I'll find somebody to come on here. There's always plenty of people to talk to in this community. Guys, I got to thank you for the support, man. It's been overwhelming. I put out a post earlier. I am not a graphic designer. And I need a badass logo because this thing is starting to explode, and we just need something to represent us really well. I know a few guys have answered to that a little bit. I don't have money to pay. I mean, maybe a little bit of money, but what I can offer you is I can promote you on this show 3 times a week, every week, and maybe stir up some business for you. Everybody's always looking for graphics these days, for stickers or whatever. So I think I can definitely stir up some business for you. So if you can help me, I'll do my best to help you. If you know anybody out there, send that information their way and have them get in touch with me. But I just really want to thank all you guys for all the support. It means a lot to me. I never expected it to explode this much, this fast anyways. I'm just trying to get some guys in this area some exposure. There's tons and tons of great anglers around here, and they just don't get the exposure that I think they deserve. So I'm just going to continue doing what I'm doing, and growing the Northeast kayak fishing. Another thing, directors, if you have your 2020 schedules ready, contact me. We'll get you on an episode. Well, it's not going to be a super long episode, but we can get you in, maybe do 2 directors at a time, talk about your schedule, talk about your Angler of the Year system or a championship system, get guys maybe that are in neighboring states to make an hour drive or a 2-hour drive to fish some of your events. So let me know, guys. We'll see you on the next episode. Tight lines, good times. See you next time.